back to my channel. I am Michele Mazelleغ. I'm going to share with you all a video clip. It is from Web Nation Africa. It is an interview between two men from African countries. I know one man is from Ghana. I'm not for sure where the other black man is from, but I think that he's currently living in the UK. And basically it is a debate about just if African countries, Ghana in particular, would flourish more if the West was involved. Now, hopefully you all have been following what is going on in the news right now. There are several African countries who are literally breaking away from the West, doing things on their own, you know, being in control of their own laws and countries and policies, and breaking away with the West as much as possible so that they can finally start to grow and build on their own terms. And in this particular video, you have two different perspectives here. You have one man from Ghana who basically is saying that Ghana, along with other African countries, need the West. They need the West in order to survive. They need the West in order to flourish. That these African countries are not able to do well without the involvement of the West. And then you have the other black guy who was saying the total opposite, and basically saying that Ghana, along with these other countries, need to start pouring more into their country and pouring more into the African continent so that the African continent can become stronger to the point where they will no longer need the aid from the West, because they will be able to pretty much take care of things on their own. So let's watch this video clip. It's a pretty long video, so I'm only taking from the video what I'm going to be talking about, but I will link this below where you can find the entire video. So here's a video clip.
We need the West. It is today that you and I are a little smart that we think that we don't need them, but we need them.
We need.
Yes, without them. Yes, you were talking about resources, bro. 100 years ago, we were living in Ghana with gold. You know, kids were throwing gold to each other, not even knowing what gold is used for. It is a white man that showed us that gold is actually something that can be used for something. We need them. Without them, there is nothing we can do. As at that time, they came to Africa with a ship. As at that time, the black man hasn't even seen a mirror before, but the white man was able to make a ship to come all the way from Europe to
You
Africa.
think white man made the first ships?
I mean, who made the first ship?
Who do you think it... Listen,
I'm not talking about the white man. I'm talking about the European.
European, okay.
Yes.
On that point, exactly. If you want to talk about shipbuilding, traveling, you understand that before the Europeans ever had the resources and the knowledge to come to Africa and do anything, the Moors spent 700 years ruling them in the Iberian Peninsula, Spain and Portugal. Yeah. When they arrived, these people, not even to be rude, these people didn't know how to bathe. They weren't using soap. They weren't eating 3 square meals a day. All of these things were brought to them by the Moors, North Africans. You see? So what I'm trying to tell you is that before they ever had a chance to come and take advantage of us or do anything to us, we taught them. We gave them the tools. The ships that we used to cross from Africa to the Iberian Peninsula, that's exactly what they engineered to come back across, you know.
The Gold Coast was actually a name given to the Empire of Ghana from the Europeans. The Europeans actually gave the Empire of Ghana that name. Now, let me just say, the Empire of Ghana it was not in the area that Ghana is there now. Ghana is in a different area than the Empire of Ghana. Ghana ultimately got its name from the Empire of Ghana, but as far as them being in the same area, they were actually in different areas. But it was the Europeans that gave Ghana the name Gold Coast because they were aware of the gold that was there, and they were aware of the wealth that the gold was given to the Empire of Ghana. the Empire of Ghana was actually called Ouagadougou, actually what it was called. And so that was the name of that particular empire. It was the Europeans who gave them that name because they wanted to be known that this particular empire was just reaping with gold, and they wanted it. They wanted to get their hands on it, and that is exactly what they went to that empire to do. Now, when he talks about that Ghana had a lot of gold, he's not lying on that. There might have been children that were playing with gold in the streets or in the towns or whatever, because there was just so much of it. But as far as them not knowing how valuable gold was, the Empire of Ghana knew exactly the power of gold. Gold was being traded long before the European colonies got there in the trans-Saharan slave trade. Now, of course, let's not get that mixed up with the transatlantic slave trade. Those are two different types of slave trade going on here. But in the trans-Saharan slave trade, you actually had Ghana, the Empire of Ghana was actually using gold as a means of trading, and that is how they gained their economic wealth and their power through gold. And so they definitely knew the value of gold. They used it to trade with it. And so, of course, let's not think that the European colonies were not able to see how this gold was being traded and the wealth that Ghana was accumulating from that gold. And they said to themselves, we want a piece of that. Of course, we all know that that's how that went. So the Empire of Ghana was full aware of the value of gold, which is the reason why they were trading with it to begin with. Now, when he starts talking about the slave trip, the ships and things like that, the Europeans had no hand in any of that whatsoever. And I'm glad that the man brought up the Moors, because the Moors is a part of history that a lot of times we don't hear in the history books. We don't see in the history books, and we don't hear it being taught in schools. And I did not know anything about the Moors until I literally was an adult, and I actually was watching a YouTube video or something like that over it. I started reading about them, and I, of course, learned how much influence they had over the European colonies, the European civilizations. And that is not something that we hear a lot. So it was the Moors, who the Moor is another name for black. They were the ones that introduced civilizations to the European empires. They were already civilized. They already had universities. They already had a lot of other updated technology that was already going on in their civilization, and they brought all of that to the European civilizations in order to help them move forward. So it's funny that the Europeans tend to forget who was the one that civilized them. It was the Moors that civilized them. So a lot of things that took place as far as getting the Europeans where they are, it started from the Moors. That's who established a lot of the things that they still use today. Now, in the video, he talked about how when you go to Ghana or in Ghana, there's nothing there that has been produced by Ghana. Everything has been produced by China. And the question is that not something that's happening everywhere? Even in the United States of America, you can barely find anything that is produced in America by Americans. That has been something that has not happened in a very long time. It's only been in the last couple of years that America is trying to produce more resources and more items and more materials that can be used for Americans by Americans, but it definitely is not outdoing the materials and the resources and things like that is being produced by China. Phones, a lot of the cars, our clothes, a lot of the things that we use in the United States of America were produced by the Chinese. And so for him to say that it's just Ghana, like Ghana is the only place where you are going and they're not using things produced by Ghanaians, then he really needs to look at the world as a whole, because ultimately a lot of these countries are not producing lot of the things that they're using. A lot of what we're using is coming from the Asian communities. A lot of it is coming from China. And they are right now the world's largest producers right now. A lot of things that we're using, China is the one that is producing them. And so until these countries decide that they want to start to create their own stuff, create their own materials in order to create their own products to sell to their own people, that is going to be the same thing that's happening. So that's not just a Ghanaian issue as far as China having a lot of things that people in Ghana are using and that they're not producing a lot. That has nothing to do with Ghana's plight or whatever. That is just that China right now is just producing a lot of things that most of the world is consuming. So it's that mindset that's really going to stunt the growth of the African continent. For people to continuously say that they need the West to survive, that the African continent needs the West in order to move forward, that they need the West in order to grow, that they need the West in order to be a stronger competitive continent, that they need the West in order to be a superpower continent. That is something that definitely has to stop being thrown around and being said, because these African countries and the African continent are starting to realize that they are able to get on their feet with the resources that they have in their countries, with the people that they have in their countries, with the knowledge and the intelligence that they have in their countries. They are able to take all of that and they are able to make the African continent what it should be. And that is the direction that you see, some of these African leaders really taking the initiative to move their countries forward. And I think that is something that definitely has to continue. And I think that's what the African people are really after, is the African leaders to really take that initiative to say, no, we no longer want the West's help. We no longer want the West to be put in their hands where they don't need to be put in their hands. And we really want them to take a step back, not really take a step back. We really just want to rid them of control, rid them of what they feel like is a need that the African countries have to have in order to be a continent, in order to be a continent that can be alongside all these other continents. And of course, you will see in history that none of the relations the Africans had with the Europeans has not really ever been a good relationship, because we all know where that relationship really came from. It came from you're going to do as I want to do. I want this. I'm not going to leave you with anything. You have to depend on me. You have to do as I say. It's sort of like a parent-child type of relationship. The Europeans always had this type of parental type of attitude when it came to the African continent. And it's like, they're saying now enough is enough. We can and will do things on our own, and we do not need you. So I hope this young gentleman from Ghana actually looks at the news and sees what's going on, to see that these African countries are doing whatever they can to really break away from the West. And that they can succeed without them. It is something that has to be learned. It's something that will take time, but eventually it will come to pass. All right, you all, that is all I have to say on that issue. I am Michelle Mazelleغ. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.